Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Katie here. And if you're new here, myself and my husband Keaton moved from Nebraska in the United States to Christchurch, New Zealand in June. And we've been here for a little about 4.5 months now, I guess. And today I wanted to share some of the funny and maybe embarrassing things that have happened since we've been here. Moving to a new country, you don't know a lot of things, and you make mistakes and you laugh at yourself, and sometimes things aren't funny in the moment and are funny later. I've got a couple of those. Some things are just funny. You're like, why did I do that? Or two, why the heck did this happen? And so the first thing that we think is just hilarious is the fact that we keep finding Nebraska shirts in thrift stores in New Zealand. No matter where we are, I went to a couple of thrift stores in Auckland, and of course, we went to one in Wellington and then a couple in Christchurch, and we find Nebraska things everywhere. I'm like, how many people from Nebraska have moved to New Zealand, or how many people just had random Nebraska shirts that are now in thrift stores? But we always giggle when we see them, and if you follow me on Instagram, I always put them up just on my story because I'm like, of course, we found another one. The next is similar, but a little bit different. So this shirt says Nebraska Champs, but a little further, it says Super Bowl Champions, if you see here. And if you're from the States or from Nebraska, you know that that is entirely impossible. And if you are not from Nebraska, if you are Kiwi or just have no idea why that's not possible, I'll explain it to you. So the Super Bowl is the biggest, I think they call it like the biggest stage in American football. It's this really big game, basically the best of the best professional football teams make it, and they play a big game together. There's a big halftime show. It's just professional teams, and Nebraska does not have a professional football team. We only have a college team, which the Nebraska football fans are like the biggest fans that there ever could be. I was never that big into football, but the Nebraska fans, yes, are so passionate, so excited about every single game and love every second of it, even if they're losing. But yeah, so this shirt, finding this, we found this at the Hallenstein Brothers store, and they have a ton of like US themed merch, but we had to buy this shirt or this sweatshirt because it's absolutely impossible for them to win the Super Bowl. They can't even get there. So it was just funny. I was like, who designed that? Clearly they didn't fact check it, or maybe they didn't care that it wasn't right, but we thought it was funny. So we got one, and then one of Keaton's aunts wanted one as well. So we shipped one to her, and she'll probably be the only one in America that has it unless somebody else ordered it. Let's see here. I have a whole list of embarrassing things because it honestly happens a lot. I do a lot of embarrassing things and I just laugh at myself, or we both do. Keaton and I both do. So let me cross those off of the list. Ooh, another one. If you have been watching our videos for a while, you know that a couple of them I make fun of Keaton for his driving on the left-hand side. He's ran into a couple of poles, and there are some times that I say like, oh, you're on the wrong side of the road, Keat. But alas, my time has come to admit that I am also not the greatest driver. Maybe a couple weeks ago, I saw some blue scraping on the side of my car. I was like, oh no, like I think somebody hit me. I was not like incredibly mad about it because it was just like a little scrape, and it just is what it is. And so I was like, shoot, like I don't know when that would have happened. It's like a bright blue color. I was like, maybe at the grocery store, but when I was parked, I don't know. And then Keaton and I drive to the gym one Saturday morning. We go into the parking garage, and Keaton was driving at the time, and I looked around at the poles that are in the parking garage, and they have bright blue paint on them. So I'm pretty sure I hit a pole, and I just don't remember, like it would have been me backing out. I'll insert a picture of the car, but it would have been me backing out, and I just would have scraped the side of my car. Honestly, didn't feel it, didn't notice it. So if you have any advice for getting paint off of a car, I don't want to ruin, obviously, my black paint that's on my vehicle, but I need to get the blue paint off, because if anybody asks, I have to own up to it and say that it was me. So now I can't say anything about Keaton's driving, because I'm the one that hit something and actually kind of did damage to the vehicle. Another little fun thing about vehicles, so we had gotten a flat tire on our way home from Lake Tekapo in Keaton's car, and we didn't have a spare, and so they had to get one. We were stuck for like a day and a half, all of that jazz. You can go back and watch that video if you really want to see us sad in Fairleigh, shoving our faces with pies, trying not to be too sad. But anyway, so we came back home, needed to get a spare tire to make sure we were all set like the next road trip that we were on. So I called up the tire shop, told them what size. They were like, great, we'll order it in. It'll be here in a couple of days. Awesome. They call me up, tire's here. I go get it. I walk into the shop, and the gentleman says, do you have the wheel to put on? And I was like, no. I had no idea that you had to buy the tire, so like the rubber parts, and the inside, the wheel, separately. And so sweet, sweet man was just like, well, I can't give you the tire without the wheel. That doesn't make sense. You can't do anything with it. And so I was like, oh, okay. And he was kind enough to tell me where I could buy a wheel. So I went online. I think it was honestly called McWheels online. And I didn't care if it matched the ones that we had on his car, because it was just going to be the spare. So I ordered one to fit. I think it was delivered the next day. And then I went back to the tire shop. I was like, I have my wheel now. And they were really great and put it together and then gave me the wheel, gave me the tire. But in the States, I feel like most vehicles I had anyways just came with a spare tire. So I didn't, or the Space Saver or a donut. And then if I ever needed a new tire, I would just take it in, and maybe they would just have them both together. But I never had to like go searching for the tire and the wheel separately. So yes, that was a little bit of an embarrassing moment, but hey, now I know, and now I should get a spare tire for my vehicle. And now I know that I need to get the tire and the wheel separately here. In the same tune, at that tire shop, and if this was you and you're watching, you know who I'm talking about, I got recognized in public, actually, at this tire shop from my YouTube channel. So the gentleman that was helping me take the tire out to the car was like, do you have a YouTube channel? And I was like, yeah. And at this time, it was like right when we got here, like maybe a month or a month and a half in. I didn't have that many YouTube videos, and for the most part, I thought it was just kind of like my friends and family watching. And so for this person to recognize me in public was kind of crazy. And not to mention, like, of course, at that specific tire shop, and he probably didn't know that I was a silly goose and didn't know that I was supposed to buy the tire and the wheel together. So if you're watching this, sir, you know who you are, and now you know that I had no idea I was supposed to buy them separately. So I'm a bit outing myself in that regard. But yeah, that was crazy that I got recognized in public. I was like, hi, yeah. I do have a YouTube channel. So if you see me in public, I guess say hi. I'll probably be like, what? How? Another one, if we go to a restaurant, sometimes we don't know the food that's on the menu. I'm trying to think. We went to a pizza place a few weeks ago and they had rocket as one of the ingredients that you could put on the pizza. And forgive me if I'm wrong, because we didn't end up getting it, so I could still not be having it right. I think it's a type of like greens or salad-ish. You can definitely tell me if I'm wrong. But like we had no idea what that is. There was a couple of other ones. So sometimes we'll just like sit at our phones on the restaurant and be like, what is this? So if you're coming to New Zealand, honestly, if you go anywhere, there's probably gonna be some things on the menu that you don't recognize and you just have to like Google it quickly. Or sometimes, honestly, we just ask the waitress, we're like, hey, what is this? Can you explain it to us? And the American accents, I think they go, oh yeah, like for sure, like no problem. We can tell you exactly what that is. And maybe they laugh at us when they walk away, but no harm, no foul in asking what the heck something is. On that same note of asking what something may be, I often have to ask my coworkers like what a certain word means that they're saying. If it's like Kiwi jargon or slang of any kind, I'm like, can you tell me what that means? Or I'm like, okay, can you think of what that would be in American terms? Or I try and like put two and two together. I'm like, oh, so it is similar to this. And in that same tune, sometimes I say things and my coworkers are like, what? What are you talking about? And then I have to think of like the Kiwi version of it and give that back to them. So it's fun. I honestly feel like every day I learn a new Kiwi word or Kiwi slang for something. And then sometimes if people talk really fast or like using Kiwi jargon or anything like that, I'm like, I'm so sorry. Can you please slow down and just say that for me one more time so I can understand it? And then there are other times that things are said really fast and I just like nod my head and smile and pretend like I know what in the heck they're talking about. And usually it happens to be okay. I think it'll get better the more I am used to the accent, the better I'll be with like people speaking fast and being able to understand them. Let's see. This next one was not necessarily funny at the time, but it's funny now. So I went on a work trip to Auckland. I was there for maybe 36 hours. I like flew out in the morning, in the morning to Auckland, and then was there for one night. And then the second day I flew out that evening. So not even a full 2 days was I in Auckland. And I was there for work training, got done with work at about 5 p.m., went to check into my hotel. They said, oh, we're out of power right now, but somebody's on their way to fix it and it should be back up and running in an hour. I was like, awesome, not a big deal. Put my stuff in the room and it was still light out at this time. Went and got dinner, came back about a half an hour later, went right back to my room, didn't stop by reception or anything, and the power was still not working. And at this time it was probably about dusk, and so not a lot of light was coming in the room, and I couldn't take a shower because it was freezing cold water. Of course, needless to say, the outlets didn't work, so I couldn't charge my phone, all of that jazz. And so I was like, well, she said it was gonna take an hour, so I'll just wait and I'm sure it'll be on shortly, because by then it had been well over an hour. About 45 minutes goes by and I was talking to Keaton on the phone. I was like, shoot, like it's been a while now. I wonder when it's gonna turn back on. So I used my phone to my cell phone to call reception, and they were like, oh yeah, it's probably gonna be another hour or so. They're on their way with the generator. I was like, okay, I can wait another hour, not a big deal, totally fine. So another hour goes by, and by this time it's pitch black in the hotel room. It's freezing cold because there's obviously no heat. And my phone was at like 15%. And honestly, I had tried to stay off of my phone. I was listening to a podcast, and then I had the flashlight on because it was dark, and honestly I was kind of scared. So I didn't want to just like sit in the dark. So I had my flashlight on, but that's the only thing that I used my phone for. And by then I was getting pretty stressed because it was getting late. I still needed to take a shower, and I needed to go to bed pretty soon. It was probably like 9:30, and I was just getting really worried because the power hadn't come back on. And so I left my hotel room and went down to reception. And of course, the woman was kind of talking with other families about what's going on. And I went down there, and she said, well, it's probably going to be another 3 to 4 hours. And I took a deep breath, and I started crying. Not like full on bawling crying, but just was kind of like, okay, well, I'm here by myself and my phone's about to die. And for me, my phone was my security, basically, and that's what it felt like, because I didn't know anybody in Auckland, and if my phone died, I didn't necessarily have a way to contact Keaton, and it was just kind of a stressful situation of me not wanting to go back to my cold, dark room, and not to mention if my phone died overnight, I wouldn't have an alarm in the morning to get up for work, because obviously the alarms in the room didn't work because the power was out, the outlets weren't working. And so she was so sweet, and she just held my arm and was like, it's okay, like, I'll move you. I was like, oh, thank you so much. So I went back to my room, packed everything up, and was back down in maybe 8 minutes. And she guided myself and 2 families to a different hotel just around the corner. And this hotel was, I guess it was more apartment style, but it was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, like completely brand new, everything. I walked in, I was like, okay, this, like, I would never be able to afford staying there if I had stayed there. But yeah, so after all of the stress of like being alone in Auckland, being cold, I had a lovely stay. I went to bed immediately, so I didn't really get to enjoy the like niceness of like a full kitchen and everything like that. I just went straight to sleep. But I told my boss the next day, and she was like, Katie, why didn't you text me? Like, we would have gotten it fixed. Like, we would have moved you to another hotel. I was like, I just didn't want to bother you. She's like, no, if that ever happens again, like, we have a travel person, they'll get on and just move you immediately. Like, don't ever do that to yourself again. I was like, okay. But yeah, but now I know. So all of that's good. The next time I go to Auckland, I'm excited to be there for longer, experience more of the city, and not be afraid. Not be afraid. But yes, so those are some funny and some of them embarrassing things that have happened to us since moving to New Zealand, living in New Zealand. I think you have to laugh at yourself every once in a while, and you have to admit that you did something silly or dumb, because if you don't, I don't know, you just live with it all inside of you. I feel like you have to share the embarrassing moments to really revel in them. But yes, once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.